But they said to us, we have nothing. We are working, but we have very little to zero resources.
Hey, make sure you subscribe for more hacks in the future.
Want to learn more about the cruise experience and the boat? Check out part 1.
So, what happens when we get to Mexico? Now, for those of you who went with me last time, where we landed this week, it was a different port. It was a different location. It's about 2 miles from where we were. But you walk out, and it is like this beautiful little area and they've got music, and they've got shops, and they've got this cute little Mexican kind of community set up, and you can walk around. There's a beach within walking distance. You can get out, you can take a taxi to downtown. It's 2 miles. We didn't do that, so I don't know how much it costs, but it can't be that expensive. Or you can also plan an excursion if you want. There's all kinds of excursions that the cruise offers, snorkeling, beaches, all kinds of stuff like that. But we are in the process of planning, as you've heard, the service event in Cozumel. So let me just show you kind of like what it looks like when you get off the boat. The weather was gorgeous. The weather was so, so nice. Perfect for January. I mean, I was like, this cannot be the better time of the year to go. Also, by the way, going in January keeps our price significantly lower. So if we were to go spring break, if we were to go summertime, the price would be double or triple, and there would be tons of kids, little kids all around. So this keeps our price down significantly and just changes that atmosphere just a little bit. Okay, this is when you get off the boat. Isn't it cute? So you can see the cruise in the background, see it? Yeah, so that's the port where you get off. So it's very leisurely. You get off. It's very safe. If anybody has any safety concerns, we never one time felt that we were in danger or that we needed to be cautious. Now, of course, you would need to be a safe traveler, right? We don't want to do anything that would be not smart. But this is a picture of the school. Okay, this is the picture of CAM school. And this is like the special education school. So the kids on the island, they are either in a special education school or they are mainstreamed. And the special education school is what we would call a cross-categorical classroom. So it's everything, it's all the needs in one, and the teachers there are just absolute saints. They are working really hard with a big mix of kids with a lot of different number of ages. And their school has, when I say it has almost nothing, I am not exaggerating. It has almost nothing. I was really struck when we were there in May. I was really struck by the fact that there were no books. No books. And part of that is cultural because not everybody is literate in Mexico, and there's just not a lot of money for books. There's not a lot of emphasis on reading, but the kids are learning to read. And so the teachers are literally like making their books and making by hand their worksheets. And they are really putting time. It's kind of like if we were to go back 30 years into making our own worksheets when we didn't have any printers or anything like that. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. There's one computer and it's locked up in the principal's office. There's one printer and it is locked up in the principal's office. You see the bars on the windows? That's so that nothing gets stolen. There are no books. The tables and chairs, the chairs get folded up every night and they're folding chairs. They get put up against the walls. There's nothing on the walls. It's very simple. And yet the kids are amazing and the teachers are amazing. And by the way, Mexican Sign Language. It's different. It is not American Sign Language. It is totally different. So we'll be providing Mexican Sign Language classes for those of you who want to learn Mexican Sign Language or some little mini dictionaries that will help prep you for some Mexican Sign Language. But this is me meeting with a couple of the staff. Okay, so we've got this woman in blue here. Her name is Carla, and she is like an SLP there. But I think she works with kind of all the kids on the island. And so she is very busy. And she was trained about 10 years ago um, to make ear mold impressions. However, they never had the materials to make ear mold impressions, or they ran out of materials to make ear mold impressions. So there's no way for them to actually make ear mold impressions. Um, and when we were there, Carla was our contact when we went in May. And when we visited in May, the kids all came in with they were so proud of their hearing devices. They walked in, we wanted to check them and we took them out, and many of the kids were like, they were like, don't take it out. You could tell that they were used to wearing them. So there was some commitment and some dedication to that. None of them worked. None of them worked. Some of them didn't have any batteries at all. Some of them had just corroded batteries. And the hearing technology, I think it was probably 15, 20 years old, the hearing aids. There was one little boy who had a cochlear implant, sound awareness, not really anything else. Do you guys see, this is pretty amazing though. Do you see that I'm wearing this black AirPod in my ear? That is a language translator. Okay. I am not fluent in Spanish, and these ladies are not fluent in English. So this is a language translator. And Carla was wearing one, and I would wear one. And when I would speak into English, it would translate it into her ear into Spanish. And she would speak Spanish, and it would translate it into my ear into English. And it worked beautifully until we got into this restaurant, which was a little noisy. And then we called Gabriella, and Gabriella joined us through like FaceTime, and she was able to translate for us. So technology is amazing these days. But this little language translator is what we used when we were in this quiet environment. Okay, so Carla works with these kids. She works all over the island. She's itinerant, so she drives like crazy. This woman here is Yvette. And Yvette, she is the current principal of the special school, and she used to be a teacher of the deaf children in Cancun. So she understands the needs of these kids pretty well. And then we also added, um, okay, and then this woman here, Gretti, is I am translating it like she was kind of the director of special ed for that district. So she kind of, there's 3 districts in Cozumel, and she oversees that. She's like the director of special ed for one district for the kids who are mainstreamed.
A lot of those kiddos with hearing differences who are not in CAM, which is a center for multiple disabilities. That's kind of what it means. They go into the mainstream. So there are 3 centers across Cozumel, and she is the director of one of them who supervises the services of any child with any condition that goes into the mainstream. So it was great to have her there, committed and ready to go.
So these are the influencers, if you will, the ladies of power in the education system. But they said to us, we have nothing. We are working, but we have very little to zero resources. So they were wonderful to talk to because, like I said, we're wanting to collaborate with them, sponsor them, and also build the capacity for what's happening on the island for these children. Um, and this is us having this meeting. So actually, you can't see it. Gabriella is on my phone right there by the napkins, and she's literally translating. She's literally translating this meeting at this restaurant for us. And we are just talking about the kids and their needs and what that looks like for them and what that looks like for us. So this was a great meeting. We didn't get to see the kids because it was Saturday. They were not in school. And then when we were done, then my husband and I got to do a little bit of sightseeing. The island is very beautiful. It's pretty walkable. Well, we walked a little bit. We didn't go too far, but we had the option that we could have hopped in a taxi and we could have gone downtown. And we didn't. We just kind of shopped around from where we were. And we got the best mango smoothie I think I've ever had in my life. Fresh mango is incredible. So again, this is just kind of what this looks like. It's really quite beautiful. Then it's time to go back on the boat, and this is how you get back on the boat. It's very easy. There's just people, they check your ID, and of course, they send you through the duty-free shop one more time to see if there's any more shopping you want before you leave the island. And then you hop back on the boat. When I think of Cozumel, now, in case you're not familiar with Cozumel, if you look at a map on at where Cozumel is an island. It's an island in Mexico. And I expected, and of course, it's a big tourist place, I thought that Cozumel meant that this is probably a fairly rich area of Mexico because it's all tourism. There's all kinds of money that's coming in there. But what I have come to learn is that 70% of the families in Cozumel live at the poverty line or below the poverty line. 70%. So of a Mexican poverty line, we're not talking about American poverty, we're talking the Mexican poverty line. So a little bit more information. They're completely isolated. You know how I always use the metaphor that we feel like we're on an island? They literally are on an island, so they don't have all of the resources that may be easily accessible if they could get in a car and drive to them. There is no audiologist on the island, and it's very difficult for families to travel to one. So, a ferry to get to and from the island to across to the mainland was like 35 American dollars, and that was the local price, which is very, very expensive for them. So for a family to get over to the mainland to somehow get a ride to an audiologist, I mean, this is a big deal. And when 70% of the families are at the poverty line or below, this is just not conceivable for them. And then when you consider the cost of hearing aids, and just what all that means for the families on this island, they do not have access to it. So when a child is identified as having special needs, then they are tested for special education, but their hearing needs, it's impossible to evaluate and formally identify. So they are identified as needing special education, but maybe they're, identified as autistic or cognitively delayed, or maybe it's they know that they have a hearing loss, but it just hasn't been formally documented. So there really is little to no training on how to work with the deaf child on the island. Some of those teachers have gone to Cancun, Mexico City, or another place to learn, but not very many have had that opportunity. And the books and materials are very expensive to obtain. So when we came, we brought some donations. We brought hearing aid batteries for them. We brought dry erase boards for them and markers. Those things they are too expensive. Paper for them to make copies. That even getting paper is very challenging for them. So it's kind of one of those situations where something so small to us is so meaningful to them. And so it impacts these children in really big ways. Let me backtrack a little bit and talk about why I've got such a heart for these kids. I kind of talked about how I felt like it was really important that I kind of understood the needs of the families. Um, I personally have had many kids come come onto my caseload that have come in with language deprivation. They're maybe in middle school. They've never been in school. They haven't ever had any sign language. They haven't ever had any technology or anything like that. And that's why I wanted to go. I really wanted to go to experience that. And I really felt once I got there, I felt like these students are our students, right? When you're a teacher, you just feel like all of these kiddos are your kiddos. And that was my heart. Thought those kids are my kids, are our kids. And if something so small that we can do can support these kids who maybe someday will come to our country or can give them a better future, a better life, it's so easy for us to be able to provide that. This past weekend when I was there was actually step 2 out of a 4-step process. So step 1 was kind of meeting the children and kind of getting a sense of their needs back in May when we had our practice trip. This one was me being able to meet with some of the administration and the staff and kind of get some additional buy-in, understand the needs a little bit better. In October of 2026, we are in the process of planning basically a hearing clinic or a hearing screening where we are going to be able to test kids that have suspected hearing loss. We're focusing on the children, but test the kids with suspected hearing loss and be able to get audiograms and get documented here. So I'm recruiting audiologists and people who want to participate in that. We will then also be able to provide some workshop for families and teachers on strategies for working with kids. And we want to be able to provide some basic Mexican Sign Language class and some materials for families and teachers. We're going to do that in October. It's going to be like, we're going to have 2 days of hearing clinic and kind of some workshops. So that's not this cruise. This is an extra trip that's happening in October. Then, when we go back in January, we will come with the hearing aids for the kids. So I am in conversation with a number of hearing aid manufacturers right now, working on getting donations. And we will be then able to program the technology and then provide the technology for these kids. Also be able, any kids we weren't able to test, some maybe hopefully do some additional hearing testing for kids, but then also be able to do some workshops on how to maintain this technology and manage it, how to troubleshoot it to make sure it's working, and then some strategies for working with these kids, some potential Mexican Sign Language class, and materials for families. Now, of course, we're not going to be able to make anybody fluent, right? But we can at least provide some support. And Keith Wan is going to do a performance for the families and the kids. By the way, his wife is bilingual, so trilingual, because she's an interpreter. So she speaks Spanish, English, and ASL. But he does performance where there's no ASL involved. It's all just body language, and it's going to be very fun. And we're going to have family and kids activities. So I'm in the process of planning that. We're going to have like stations. So while kids are getting fitted, then while kids are in line and waiting, we'll have some workshops and some activities for kids, maybe some games, maybe some crafts. So for those of you who are interested in participating in that, you'll be getting more information on it. So I know there's questions about how much does this cost and what does this all look like? I'm gonna provide that for you. This is the exact cruise. Okay. I went to carnival.com. I put in the dates and I said, tell me how much it would cost for that inside room. What are we talking about for that right now? And they have a special sale that's going on. And then I also added the prepaid gratuities and the taxes, which the online itinerant is covering for you. And if you were to go straight to Carnival and get that exact interior room, the total would be $1,016. So let's say $508 per person. Okay. For the cruise, that's the most budget oriented. Okay. So this is the most budget oriented. I know some of you want to go big. So I'm starting with this most budget oriented. So let's say about $508 per person just for the cruise. So that's if you go offsite and you book it on your own. What I'm able to offer you is actually $250 for the cruise. And then you add on the cost of the conference. Okay, the conference is extra, but then you get out with the whole thing, the conference and the cruise for $775. But the cruise is only $250. And again, that is that interior room. That is the special pricing for members, and that is double occupancy. So if you go triple occupancy, then it brings it down actually to $170 for the cruise. And then about $700 for the whole thing. Now, remember, of course, it includes all your food and all of that stuff. And that's for the smallest room. So I'm looking at the most budget oriented because I know that people want to know that. Now, if you want a balcony room, the nicest room, then you're probably looking at closer to $1,000 if you are a member of the Professional Academy, and that's that nice big room, and that's your double. That's if you're sharing, so $1,000 per person. But you get that nice big balcony room. How does it look in terms of pricing? I have a certain number of rooms secured at this price point. When those rooms get sold out, then I contact Carnival and I say, do you have any more of those rooms? And they'll give it to me. The closer we get to the date, the more expensive it gets. So right now I only have 5 more balcony rooms left. That's all I have. So then this price will then go up. Once those rooms get sold out, then that price will go up. I have lots of ocean views and I've got lots of interiors, but I only have a few balcony rooms left. And then the other thing I know what you were asking is what's included and what's not included. The food is all included, except for if you want to upgrade. Drinks, they have drink packages. Now, if you don't get a drink package, then water, coffee, tea, iced tea, lemonade, that's all just part of the basic, entry level. Then you can purchase a drink package and you can add on soda. And then that is a price point for that. It's not super expensive, but you get all the soda you want. Then it's everything. Then they have one that is called, and you also get specialty coffee with that. So they have coffee shops. You can get lattes. Plain coffee is in the free, but special Starbucks coffee is in the upgrade. That's with the soda. Then, if you want the drink package, then you can do the drink package. Now, these packages, if you do a lot of drinking of whatever you drink, if you drink a lot, it's worth it to get a package. I think they figured it was like if you got more than 8 drinks a day, then it's worth it to get the package. 8 drinks a day is a lot of drinks. So if you're like, I don't need 8 drinks a day, then it's actually less expensive for you just to buy the drinks one at a time. And that's what I did with my coffee. I just drank water and lemonade, and then I bought, 2 coffees a day, and it was still quite a bit less expensive. But they do have an alcoholic package. So if you want to drink, then it's whatever the cost, whatever you would pay. I think it's like $80 a day, but then it's times 5 days. So it can definitely stack up. But if you're a big drinker, then I mean, people say, yeah, it's worth it. So that's totally up to you. I see Bambi has asked, I'm thinking about bringing my mom who is deaf. Can she hang out at some of the workshops? Okay, so if she is attending the conference, then she can attend, she can hang out at the workshops. If she's just coming to hang out, she cannot hang out at the workshops, but she can hang out with everybody after the workshops. So she'll have lots of people to visit with, and she can pay to attend the conference. By the way, if you're bringing a guest who's just coming on for the cruise, then they just pay for the cruise. That's all they pay for. So it's the non-member cruise only price. So I think right now it's like $500. That bottom room is like $550. So you can absolutely bring a guest, they just pay for the cruise. All right. So what if a member wants to come with a non-member? That's fine. There is a member price and a non-member price. So basically the non-member price you add on about $250. So the member benefit is you get a $250 discount. So sometimes it's actually worthwhile for them to become a member because the membership is only $225 and then you get the full membership. So there is that. What about paying for the drinks, upgraded food and card and app? Great question, Naomi. So what is happening now is once you are fully paid for the cruise, which you are, I contact Carnival and I say, here is Naomi. This is her room. This is her roommate. They ask about your medical questions and all that stuff. I have to have the form. I asked you to fill out a form, and I think most of you who have signed up did because I kind of poked you a little bit. So I have to have that information to give to Carnival. And then I will email you, Naomi, and I'll say you are locked in. And then you will be able to add those upgrades inside the app through Carnival directly. You'll be able to put that on your own credit card and add those things. There are a lot. I did notice. Here's one thing I noticed in all the cruise groups, people are telling you all how to do like really fancy. They're like, oh, bring like little hooks on your door so that you could do this, and bring a fan so you could do. And I will say for this short little cruise, this 5-day cruise, we didn't do anything special. I didn't bring any fans. I didn't bring any extra hooks. I didn't bring anything different, and it was just fine. So if you are a simpleton like I am, then you can pack pretty simply. And you'll be just fine. You want to be cautious with the water in Mexico. It's different water than our bodies are used to, so it can make us sick. When I was at the restaurant, and this was not on the main strip, this was like a local restaurant. We kind of wiggled through, and they asked us if I wanted water, and I said I wanted water, and they said, "Do you want bottled water or a glass of water?" And I asked them, "Is your water filtered?" And they were like, "Yes, it is bottled water. They just pour it out into your glass." So they serve bottled water, but like the big water. And so I said, "That's perfect. I'll drink that." And then about halfway through the cup, I thought, uh-oh, I looked at my husband and I said, "Oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that. I hope that was okay." And it was. We didn't have any issues with it. So I would say be cautious, ask if it's filtered water, but you don't want to drink from a water fountain, or you just want to be cautious with them. On the boat, though, no problem. No problem at all with the water on the boat. So Jennifer asked if if this boat is only our conference or if it is a general conference. It is a general boat. It's the regular boat. It's a regular boat. We just have a certain number of rooms, although we have a lot of rooms. So you'll be running into people all over the boat, but it is not, I did not charter an entire Carnival cruise ship. Not yet. That's a big goal though. That would be amazing. I've thought about it. There are deaf cruises. This is not that though. But we are going to make sure that it is accessible. So if you do have deaf family, deaf friends, of course we are going to have some deaf guests. So we are going to make sure that we have interpreters and everything is accessible. Yep. Will there be graduate credits available or just a certificate of attendance? That's a good question, Bambi. Typically a graduate credit is like you need like we wouldn't even be able to provide graduate credit because I think it's normally like they require like a semester's worth of hours. So what is that, like 36 hours of constant like professional development? We wouldn't be able to do that. However, I could probably build it into my knots and be able to have it count towards your graduate credit. The online itinerant does offer one credit after I think it's 16 hours. Okay, so that is a big question. So what you want to do is see if your district covers conferences. If you look at the cost of this and the cost of the conference, right? When you consider the conference plus the hotel plus the food, this really is not any different than that, or not much different. So when we went in May, there were some people whose district said, we will cover this because it's the same cost as what their conference is. There were a couple people also who they said, we'll cover your conference, but the cruise is on your own. Now you'll notice the cruise was $250, right? So that's for that smaller room. So that's very reasonable. So I would talk with your district and see what conversation they would have.
Another thing maybe that you can do is negotiate at least getting the days off. And yeah, that's what you want. And maybe they'll do that and you'll be like, I just want permission to take time off to go to this professional development, opportunity. I recognize it's out of state, out of country, whatever, I'll bear that cost. That might give you a little bit of wiggle room.
In my district, I can request like every 2 years a special, professional development like this. So it's worth to find out what's available.
Yes, if you can get the days off, and that's kind of one benefit of being an itinerant. Sometimes there's some flexibility. You can kind of like, work in your students on other days, or so there's some wiggle room for that. Not as easy if you've got a classroom. So there is that.
Well, I wanted to add, Stephanie, that my district didn't have a problem with giving me the days off, even my travel days, even though they didn't pay for it, but they did give me professional days, even the
Nice.
travelers. Yeah, so that
Nice.
helped.
And then did you get to use the professional development credit towards licensure? Do you need anything like that towards your licensure or anything like that?
Yes, it helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will there be anything specifically for interpreters? I think all of this is for interpreters because this is really about learning the culture and the needs of the families and how to work with these kids. So RID credit will be included. There's not going to be like any like skills signing or anything like that, but it will all overlap with any interpreter who works with students in general, and especially if they're working with a student who is from a different country, and especially if they're working with a student from Mexico. Working super closely with Illinois to make sure that Illinois credits are provided. So ISBE, and all the credits that the online itinerant typically offers will be offered for this. RID credit, everything. Yeah. Will our group have special attire or a t-shirt while we visit the school? Yeah, we'll have something for sure. You better believe it. How many people went on the last trip and how many are you expecting for this one? Great questions. We had about 10 on the first trip, which actually was hilarious because I expected 0. She's gone, but I tapped Kara. And I have a really special relationship. And I said, hey, Kara, you want to get on a boat with me and check this out? And she said, yes. And let's learn all about how we meet the needs from kids from Mexico while we're there. And I said, oh, well, I know Gabriella Holtzman. She's awesome at that. So let's get her on the boat. And then I said, well, if I've got Gabriella and Kara, let me just see if anybody else wants to go. So I put one post in our members group, not even a picture or anything. And I just said, anybody want to, try this out with me. And my inbox exploded. And I had all of these people sign up like that within, I don't know, it was like within 48 hours. Money down. People were literally on the boat with me. So it was a really small, kind of spontaneous trip that we did, and we made the most out of it. I have 60 rooms reserved at this point. So it depends on how many people, are in a room. I'm kind of hoping for 100 people. But I mean, I am a big thinker, right? I mean, who knows? You guys might be it. I might not have anybody else join me besides us. I mean, we shall see. But we already have about 30 people who are signed up. So we already have 30. I have 60 rooms. So that means we've got room for about, over 100 if we hadn't. So again, if your questions did not get answered, just post them in that Facebook group. That's a great place because you're probably not the only person who has the questions. So go ahead and post in there, and we'll be talking more about this as it goes on. So happy that you joined us tonight, and you are going to be hearing more and more about it.
Visit our website to learn more about our 2027 cruise and how to sign up to join us.